All right, we're back. We don't have a catchy little jingle for you. We're working on that one, but we are into episode 4 of Major League Journeymen, and we're happy to be here fresh off, I think, a pretty solid chat with a ridiculously popular superstar, Basti Schweinsteiger.
Don't forget to introduce yourself. You're very important.
Everybody, Dax, I keep telling you this. Everybody knows who I am, man. I don't have to do that part. We got that covered. I got the dinosaur in Gordo. Right to my right, to your left, we got Dax McCarty, the Iron Man. I think we can officially call you the Iron Man now if you haven't been called that yet. 450 appearances this past weekend, and myself, Dan Gargan, who levels out the ego of two of these guys. We, fresh off the start of Rivalry Week, which is tough to say, by the way, video surfaces of Alan Gordon playing golf at Pinehurst with Chad Marshall. Did you wear your studs, Gordo? Were there elbows thrown? Who else was in attendance? And can we get any more on who won the round?
Hey, this is the best thing. Okay, so this guy, one of William Hesmer's buddies, right, from North Carolina, doesn't know a lick about MLS soccer, doesn't know anything. He gives me a ride from the airport, and I'm riding in, and I pull up. I don't even know who's on the chat because I don't have their numbers, and we go into the clubhouse, and literally he's like, "Man, this is gonna be so cool! Like, it's gonna be like a reunion for you guys, you know." And I roll in. It's Chad Marshall, Jack Jewsbury, and Brian Carroll, 3 guys that I absolutely hated in my career and hated me. And I've never hung out with them outside of soccer, outside of hating each other. And I was like, yeah, man, I actually hate these guys, and I'm pretty sure they hate me, but we'll see how it goes. That's literally the introduction. But we ended up having a real good time, making some friends, and I can't remember the second 18 on one of those days, but the other 2 rounds that I remember, I played decent. Everybody was pretty equal, and we had a really good time.
How is it possible to play decent at golf with a broken back and a broken hip? A back that you say you need surgery on.
This is actually a good answer because this is how you could probably explain your Major League Soccer career as well. So I'm intrigued to hear.
Just get through it. Like, figure it out. You know, you're not going to be able to do some movements, but you tweak a few things, and you figure it out.
Gordo, you know what I say? I haven't been healthy since I was 17 years old. You just play
mentally or physically.
That's right.
A little bit of both.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's coming from a guy. I mean, I want to give you the keys to my body and have you drive it around the block, buddy.
Would it make it? Would it make it around the block? I think that's been an open question for a while now.
Yeah, I wasn't moving very well out there, but the swing juice was helping. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Who else was on the course?
Guys, you would know Dempsey was out there. He's a good player, man.
Golfer?
It's really apparent that he made the most money out of all of us and doesn't need another job. So he is playing a lot of golf. It was a pleasure having him around. Dan Kennedy was out there. Didn't have the best week, I'll tell you that much. I mean, this guy was coming in. I think he called himself Aladdin.
Who's this?
He said, back home, they call me Aladdin. Dan Kennedy. When he went into the sand, they called him Aladdin. Or he called himself Aladdin because he's special out of the sand. I think he called himself, I mean, he had a lot of nicknames for himself. Sam Cronin was out there. Him and Brian Carroll against me and Dan Kennedy. 2 of the most inconsistent guys against 2 of the most consistent guys. You can just go ahead and guess how that went.
Yeah, we can deduce what that result was.
The 2 sixes just buried us.
What's BC up to?
BC, he's doing the financial planning gig. Yeah, he's doing a good job. Good to hang out with him. Super solid guy.
Just for those of our listeners who have absolutely no idea who you guys are talking about, Brian Carroll.
Brian Carroll, Mr. Consistency. William Hessmer has, I think they're teaming up a little bit.
That's right.
They're representing a lot of
two guys, Brian Carroll, Sam Cronin. I mean, two guys that I think we would gladly take into the Journeyman pact, but I don't know if they qualify. Very stable careers, not a lot of teams gone through. Right there on the borderline for
me.
Dude,
I'll tell.
Yeah,
man, you're right. You're spot on. Will Hessmer has a special place in my heart of hatred. Not for him as a person, but he scored against us while I was with TFC. Speaking of rivalry week, we were playing Columbus in Toronto, and I actually was wearing the armband, and we had a phenomenal game. Just ripped Columbus apart, and it was, I can't remember, it was 1-1 in like the 94th minute. They brought everybody up. Nobody marks Hessmer. And Hessmer, the ball falls to his feet, and it's like, he triple clutches because he doesn't know what to do with it. So he keeps fake, and all these people are like, well, a normal forward, what a shot, what a shot, what a shot. And he just kept pump faking, and then he buries it in the back of the net, runs all over the place like an absolute lunatic, and breaks our heart. I mean, just broke every bit of spirit that we had left at the end of the season. That was a tough one. That's still tough.
You have to mark the goalkeeper if he comes up. That's like one of the most dangerous players. You know that a goalkeeper, a chance will always fall to them if they're in the box.
Absolutely.
And don't look at their hips.
It was heartbreaking. It's still heartbreaking. Man, Dax, you were where, in DC this weekend? Have they made any improvements? I read an article recently, maybe this week, that was talking about big changes at Audi Field. Did you see these changes, these supposed changes?
I didn't see any changes at Audi Field. The only changes I saw were their pitch was quite spongy. Like, looks great on the surface, and then you walk around on it and you feel like you're going down to play in Honduras. So quite spongy, quite slow. Honestly, good result for Nashville SC. I think DC United, I want to say, under Wayne Rooney, our whole scout was that, they play more direct. They're very much out of the mold of an English championship team, right? Win second balls, compact midfield, a lot of high-intensity runs, duels. And these guys came out and played in a 5-4-1. And I think they lost Benteke to an injury during the week, so they didn't have a target striker. And they were trying to play like prime Barcelona out there. You have Tyler Miller, who's standing on top of his box, playing like sweeper keeper, right behind his center backs while we're trying to high press. And they were playing out of absolutely everything. High risk. Obviously, we picked off a couple balls. We couldn't quite take advantage of those situations. But I was actually shocked at how they tried to play. And I actually complimented an old friend of mine, Carl Robinson, who played with me at New York Red Bulls.
Is he on the staff there?
Who's now, he's an assistant coach now. I guess Rooney called him up and was like, hey, we lost an assistant coach. We would love you to come and join. So I had a nice chat with Robbo. And I was like, hey, man, I want to take my hat off to you guys. You guys actually played totally different than what we prepared for. And it was a good game, not like the most aesthetically pleasing game of soccer you'll ever see. I don't think Nashville SC, we played particularly well, but we go up 1-0 off of an absolutely incredible goal from Alex Mawil.
Can you run us through the goal?
I would love to. It's actually one of the best pieces of build-up play you'll see from our team this year. It was fantastic. From Joe into our right fullback, into me in the midfield, we get a good switch on, and then you see Fafa Pico here isolated one-on-one with a center back. Dan Lovitz plays him a great ball down the line. Hani Mukhtar in this new formation gets in between the lines and actually should score off of the great cross from Fafa. Goalkeeper makes a good save. Ball gets recycled back out, and then it's just a cluster in the middle of the goal. Donovan Pines tries to clear it, hits off Alex Mawil's booby, straight back into the goal. So, Jack, can we pull up the picture as well? And I want to show you what he was doing with the ref. So he's sitting there showing Nima Sagafi, the ref. He's like, listen, man, VAR is like, we're checking for a handball here. And Alex is like, look at my boob, man. Look at it. It's red. All right? It's red. So in the middle of the game, while they're checking it, and by the way, every replay shows it clearly hits him under the arm. But just to be sure, just to sell it, Alex Muyl tells me, hey, dude, I'm just giving myself a quick titty twister real quick. I'm making it more red. I'm making it more red. And he's just grabbing and squeezing his boob really hard. And so then he's lifting it up and he's showing the ref. And the ref's like, wait, let me see again. Where did it hit you? And he's showing him,
hold on.
and
He's
like,
engaging in this conversation, the ref?
Yes, he's God. But Alex was doing it as he was walking back, and the ref was like at the ear, like, hey, let me see if this is a goal. So this is the first time that a player in the history of soccer has given himself a titty twister, a purple nurple, whatever you want to call it, in order to help his team succeed. All right. So shout out to Alex Mouille. Just so smart, so clever. I think the goal would have stood regardless, but hey, his boob was extra red.
Georgetown boy, by the way. Hoyas!
Great dude. Love Alex. But then, you know what? Anytime you're on the road, 10 minutes left in the game, 1-0, doesn't matter how it looks, you want to get 3 points. They ended up scoring a really nice goal, nice equalizer. And so 1-1's probably a fair result. But you know what? Anytime you take a point on the road against a rival, I think you'll take it.
So DC's your rival? I thought we talked about Atlanta being your guys' rival.
I meant more so.
How many rivals
easy.
do you have?
Easy there, Mr. Literal. I'm talking more as like an Eastern Conference rival, you know. They're going to be in and around those playoff spots, all right? You don't have to take it seriously. I know last week was rivalry
week.
week.
In Nashville. I think you guys are like confused.
We have a lot of rivals, all right? MLS likes to have a lot of rivals with a lot of teams.
They do love, and I wanted to talk about rivalry week. Dax, what's the best rivalry that you've been a part of?
I would say easily the New York Derby.
And it's easy. You're saying easily.
Easily. Listen, in the early days of FC Dallas and Houston, that was real and that was good. The New York Derby, whether people liked it or not, it was a step up, a level up, and it's because you have Red Bull, who Thierry Henry had just retired. We kind of changed our whole system in 2015. We were this like high pressing team, didn't spend a ton of money, and then NYCFC comes in. They have their really high priced DPs, Villa, Lampard, Pirlo. Mm-hmm. There's just two totally different ideals of how to play and how to build a roster. And then you add the proximity, and New York is blue, New York is red, which some of that is, of course, a little bit of fluff. But on the field, it was real, and we took it really seriously. And I played in 6 games for the Hudson River Derby before I got traded. New York Red Bulls against NYCFC. 1-5, lost 1. I'll just leave that
That's
right
a pretty
there.
good record. And for you to say that you took it seriously as a player, like you actually felt it, I think that's different. That's a differentiator because it doesn't always happen that way for players. I know that for fans it means a lot, but for players it's not always the same thing. Gordo, you've played in a lot of rivalries. What's your number one?
San Jose, LA.
For sure? Like hands down?
Yeah, not even
And
close.
all right, so well, let me take it one step further. For which jersey? Because you've had some pretty incredible moments in both.
Who do you rep, Gordo? Who do you rep? Who do you choose? Who is your squad? The Galaxy or the Earthquakes?
Well, the Galaxy is my squad. I've gone on the record to say that. I played there 11 years. You know,
R.I.P. to the Bash Brothers. The Bash Brothers mean nothing.
Years. And I had my most memorable moments as an Earthquake, hands down. I wasn't scoring many goals against the Earthquakes when we played them. I don't even really remember those games. But I did have, the only reason I got back on the Galaxy was some of those games against Bruce Arena. And he signed me. He was like, I just didn't want you to score on us anymore, so I signed you, you know? So, I mean, no, that was good. But, Dax, weren't you guys both good in New York? I mean, that matters, right?
It does. Well, NYCFC, their first year, they weren't good, right? They had some issues. But then after their first year, they were very good, I think, from there on out. And so, look, they started to get more competitive after the 7-0, after the touchdown game. I know you guys remember that game.
Oh, yeah.
Because we just completely dominated the rivalry in the beginning. And so it was very one-sided. But after that 7-0 game, I think they got a little kick up the ass, and they ended up, I think they beat us maybe 4 or 5 games in at Yankee Stadium, and that was their first win. And now, I think if you look back on it, the record now is quite even. I still think the Red Bulls have won more than they've lost against them, but NYCFC is a good team. Red Bulls are a good team, and there is a real, I think, hatred amongst the fan bases there, right? Because one of the first times that NYCFC visited Red Bull Arena, I'll never forget this. They had fans that were like ripping seats out of Red Bull Arena. It was like completely
Is that because
irrational,
there
ridiculous
weren't Red
behavior.
Bull fans that actually sat in them, or what?
Look, you know the away fans, they always get a section. All right, stop that. Back when I was there, you know what? Red Bull Arena was more full than it is now. But I'm not taking any credit for that. But I'll just say that the rivalry was real. The players felt it. There was a lot of passion involved. Absolutely didn't have the history of a Portland, Seattle, or of a San Jose, LA.
Yeah.
But if the players care, then the fans will care
Take
too.
take your Red Bull hat off for 1 second here, and tell me which was the tougher place to play. Like when NYCFC was hosting games at Yankee Stadium for Red Bull New York to come in, or vice versa.
We loved it. The way we played, we loved playing at Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
Because the way that we looked at it, it was a small field. They were going to try to play tiki-taka, play through our press every single time, and that's why we won the game 7-0. We would pick the ball off 20 yards from their goal, and we would have a shot within 2 seconds, and set pieces. The field was
And they were
small,
brave
long
with
throw-ins,
under
corner
pure-
kicks. When we played at Red Bull Arena, it actually catered to them a little bit more because the field was bigger. It was a nice field, right? So they could try to play, and it was a little bit more difficult to get our high press on. But Yankee Stadium, I mean, just to say that you're able to play in a baseball stadium, I mean, it's crap. I never want to play there again. But ultimately, it is a pretty cool experience to say that you can play at this iconic
Man, I
stadium.
hated being there. Hated it. Hate
I
playing
agree.
in a baseball stadium.
It's not a soccer game at that
No.
point, right? I mean, it's duels, and you know you're
field was
you're 5
cockeyed.
yards away from the central midfielder, and then you're 10 yards away from the center back. There's no space.
Yeah.
Do you believe the renderings that came out? I think they came out this week or last week for NYCFC's new stadium. Have you seen them?
I believe it. It's going to be, I think, 12 or 13
I
years
think
since they've
in
come into
Queens,
the league.
right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Have you seen these pictures, Gordo?
They look
No.
amazing.
They're outrageous. I mean, they will reset the standard for stadiums in this country.
Every stadium today that's being built today in any sport is going to be that you have to just they want to one up the next stadium that was built, and you have all the examples of what to do and what not to do. So there's some kind of stadium. I don't know if it's football. It's probably football. It's going to be like $6 billion, something like that. Like they're spending a ridiculous amount on this.
What
on these
sport?
stadiums.
Are you just making this up?
Oh, well, I saw it somewhere. Oh yeah, Statman Jack.
Major League Journeymen. We see it somewhere.
think
Everything we
billion.
say,
I
we
think
saw
it's
it
gonna
I
somewhere.
think we're gonna have to
in
revisit
between
this
1 and
topic
6 billion.
because I think that there's a lot to discuss here on venues in this league and what's I would say quote unquote the best or the worst. Right? You're talking about the field, the surface at Audi. I have a lot of opinions on this, but I think it's much broader of a conversation. Let's stick with the best rivalry in the league right this second. Who is it?
Galaxy LAFC. If you want to talk purely
The
about
Trafico.
Drama.
the Trafica. If you want to talk purely about like the intensity and the like fun nature of the games, because I feel like every game they play is like a 6-7 goal thriller. If you want to talk about like the best rivalry overall, in my opinion, in the league is Seattle Portland. But right now in this moment, the LA games are awesome. It's must see TV always.
Gordo, you agree?
Well, Dax takes like 3 answers. You got to leave something for me because
I said two.
Well,
Let me
I would've
take
said-
option
I
A
would've said
and
it-
option B.
Yeah, hey Gordo, anything? Can you come up with something? I'm with Dax.
Gordo's gonna
on
say
this.
Cincinnati, Columbus. Watch.
The cauldron of hell.
No, I'm with Dax. I can't disagree. I would have said L.A. Galaxy, or however you want to say that, just because I think there's such a serious fight for. It's just a turf war. You know, it's the most prestigious, most decorated club in league history. They are trying. I mean, we've gotten to the Galaxy talks. They're struggling, right, and they feel it. And they, playing for the Galaxy, they take pride in being that model of excellence in the MLS. And here's LAFC doing everything bigger and better right across the road. So I think that's the biggest turf war. You can't get bigger than that. They're right next to each other. It's really hard to beat. I know, NYFC and Red Bulls are close in proximity, or those East Coast, markets are close, but like this one is really close, really tight. And LAFC is just slapping them. They're just slapping them right now, and Galaxy are fighting really hard to just hang on to that number one spot or whatever, which they clearly aren't anymore.
Gordo, would you say the Galaxy are the redheaded stepchild to LAFC right now?
Right now, I don't know how you can go from like the golden child to the redhead stepchild so fast. I would say that
you lose Alan Gordon
to a redhead, Gordo.
No, I
set myself up for that.
They were the golden child, and they've just gotten in trouble. They've gotten like a DUI, or they've gotten in trouble with the law, and the parents are really not happy.
They are not. They're grounded. They are grounded.
and child number 2 is looking really.
They've
good.
been grounded for a while. Child number 2 just got a scholarship to D1 that his parents didn't have to negotiate. He's doing well for himself. I think about that like iconic image of Jesse Marsh and David Beckham, where they're nose to nose, toe to toe. Were you on that team, Gordo?
Yeah, I was on the field.
You were on the field.
Yeah.
So you're talking about San Jose, LA as being the greatest rivalries that you played in. Do those connect? Are they rivals there? Like that Chivas Galaxy rivalry? Because that's the origin of LAFC and Galaxy, right? Were those early games? Not when Chivas was the getting kicked out of the league Chivas, but early on when Bradley was the coach and Jesse Marsh and Sasha and some of those other guys that were like they were a legit team.
Yeah, they were legit. I mean, I think that we were rivals. We were in the same stadium.
Right.
There was that. I think it was so short-lived, man. It was 1.5 seasons. It was like 2 seasons, 2 full seasons. And the Galaxy, we were struggling at that point. So, but so I think it was just it just didn't have enough runway to get to something, and it's been gone for so long. But I mean, we felt it. We both wanted to win, and you see the guys in the weight room the next day, which was super awkward when you're getting into it with somebody, and then you see them all week. You're like, hey, you done using that bench? It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Oh man, there was so much going on in that photo too. Like Beckham just joins the league, right? So the designated player thing is now a thing. Players are making boatloads of money at the top end of the rosters. Jesse Marsh is the American playing for Chivas. There was just so many layers to that rivalry. Do you think that the LAFC LA Galaxy rivalry now diminishes the San Jose, like the Clasico? I was going to ask you the same thing. I mean, what happens when something like that happens, and San Jose and LA have such a deep history? Who's really their rival? I mean, it's clearly LAFC, but San Jose and LA have such a deep history and of these classic, iconic games. There's not been better games.
No, dude, those games at the Stanford Stadium when I was with the Quakes with you, and you scoring that goal, Cronin lifted it to the back post, dunking it, and you running over to the sideline. I mean, those were unbelievable moments. That was, right. I mean, that was like the epitome of the league at the time. Really, I mean, right? I mean, it was the Bash Bros. It was the Supporter Shield winners playing against the champs in the Galaxy and taking it to them. I mean, I remember those locker rooms. Like we took. How much pride did we take in being in the bottom of Buckshaw and the bottom of Santa Clara and in like a postage stamp for a locker room, and then traveling to Stanford where college kids had better facilities than we do, and we're playing against the Beckhams and the Donovans and the Kenos and those guys. There was a lot to it.
There was. It doesn't diminish it. It never will. That will always be there.
I disagree, Gordo. I disagree with you 100%. Of course it diminishes it. Of course it does.
How?
It doesn't diminish, obviously, the history of the rivalry. LA, San Jose, they have history. LA Galaxy and LAFC, that is the best rivalry in the league at this point. Did you guys watch the San Jose LA game recently?
Yeah, I did.
There's just nothing there.
And is that Dax? Is that because
I will tell you why. It is player driven. Let me give you the example of the Hudson River Derby. When NYCFC came into the league, who were the New York Red Bulls' biggest rivals? DC United.
Right.
Those games against DC United before NYCFC came in, they were fierce, they were intense, They were aggressive. There was hatred on both sides, from the fans especially and the players. You understood that that was the real rivalry. NYCFC comes in, it changes the dynamic, and you have to admit that. Like, it changes the dynamic right now.
What year
like,
was
do you think
Aleko drinking a Red Bull? Was NYCFC already in the league?
that was great? I don't know. That was like no, dude. Aleko might be older
Yeah,
than you
that's probably
guys.
right. He is
Aleko,
old.
that was like 2007, 2008. I don't know, but my point is the fans will never forget the LA San Jose rivalry. They'll never forget the Red Bull DC rivalry. And the players that played in it, like, that was really special to you, Gordo, because you played in it. You think Ricky Puig like gives a crap about the San Jose Earthquakes? The only thing he cares about is beating LAFC. Like, that's just what it looks like from the outside.
I don't know about that.
And
I mean, I hear
it's-
that. I hear that, Dax. But like, isn't that
That's a
isn't that
fact.
part of isn't that part of a
Gargs,
player's
that's a fact.
Isn't that part of a player's responsibility though to know what
Sure.
is meaningful to the fans? Because I'll tell you what, if you ask the Galaxy fans and the Earthquake fans, they're just as passionate about that rivalry.
I agree 100%. And the players should understand and they should know it. But what do you see when you go to LA? All the bright lights of the El Trafico, LA Galaxy, LAFC, they're our neighbors. They're kicking our ass right now, however you want to talk about it. San Jose Earthquakes, that's all well and good. Of course they want to win the game. Of course there's a history there. But you can't tell me if you went and polled, anonymous poll in the LA Galaxy locker room, 28 out of 28 players would say it means more to them to beat LAFC than San Jose. That's 100% fact. Just like if you went to the Red Bulls locker room and asked them, who do you want to beat more, NYCFC or DC United? Every Red Bull player would say NYCFC to a T. I guarantee
If the Quakes
that.
were a better team, would that answer be the same thing?
Yes.
The Quakes
Yes.
are a good
I'm
team.
not
That's the
saying
thing.
that they're not a
Good
good
team,
team.
but
I'm
they're
saying
not
if they're a
LAFC.
better team than LAFC, is that answer the same?
Probably not.
Rivalries are they're driven by the fans and the players. I agree with Dan completely on this, and it's the players that need to step in, because there's always going to be different players that it means absolutely zero to before they get there, and then they quickly have to realize what this means to the fan base.
I'm just telling you the facts, buddy.
Only
Fans
speaking in
will
fact
still
over
care. Fans will still care. I think it changes the dynamic, obviously, to your point. It'll change the dynamic. It does, but it doesn't diminish what has already been in place from LA to San Jose. So that's
right.
where we differ. I agree with you, but I don't think it diminishes.
It doesn't
the other
diminish the
rivalries.
history, and that's where I agree with you. It doesn't diminish the history, and players like you experience that, and players like Dan, you guys know about Buckshaw.
I
You
get
guys
it.
know
I'm
about
ta-
Spartan Stadium. These other guys have no clue what you're talking about.
It's not about the players. It's about the fans. The fans will show up and they'll care more about that game, not more. They're going to care about the LAFC, dude. That's the turf war, like we talked about. But they will still remember, because these guys are they're around longer than all of us, right?
Correct.
They've been there. They're fighting. They're fighting for their club right now. They care deeply. I've been in some of those rooms with these ultra fans, and these guys. I literally heard a guy say, I've missed my daughter's wedding for a Galaxy game. I've missed vacations to Maui, and I'm sitting in the back corner like, I wouldn't. And I was playing for him, you know?
that guy
Like,
needs to be tarred and quartered, dude.
yeah,
That's horrible.
it's like club, God, family. You know, these guys are serious.
So all right,
These guys are serious. They don't forget.
In that vein of who drives these rivalries, right? It's player, it's fan, it's club, it's league in a lot of ways. We saw a couple players recently score goals against their former club, right? And some celebrated, some didn't. Joseph scores in Miami to get off, I think, a pretty tough run for him against Atlanta, which he's the king of Atlanta still. There still has not been a new king crowned. He does celebrate. And then this past weekend, Justin Meram scores for Charlotte in Atlanta and goes through like these theatrics of making sure that everybody knew that he wasn't celebrating, which players before him have done. Personally, I don't score a ton of goals, so I don't have a ton of expertise in this area, but I did score for the Chicago Fire against Toronto FC 2 weeks after I got traded there, so I can touch on that.
Boom.
But Gordo, what's your opinion on this? I'm interested to hear from a goal scorer.
So for me, I'm not like, you know, when I was playing, I wasn't a student of the game, as you would say, right? So I was celebrating, and I'm disrespectful, like, and I know that, and I paid the price for it. But I think 100% you should be scoring, you should be celebrating. You're on a new team now, and it doesn't mean that you are disrespecting the fans. I think that you should be all in for your team, celebrating and enjoying that win with that team. And listen, and I didn't even think about it. I didn't think, if I score, am I going to celebrate? I was always
what
celebrating.
do you think about?
Huh?
What do you think about?
I was thinking about the actual act of scoring. I wasn't thinking, hey, am I going to celebrate or not? No, I was like, goals didn't come all the time for me either, but when they did, dude, I was freaking out. Because a lot of the time they were late. They were late goals.
You were taking your shirt off. Everyone knows what you were doing.
I was taking my shirt off. They were late goals. They were meaningful goals for me personally. I was fighting for a job, and I was fighting for a new club, and these guys just gave me away. I was like, I had a chip on my shoulder. That's how I played. And so, yes, I was going to let them see what they lost. And we talked about Journeymen. We had to add something. We had to show that we were adding something to our new club. And that was a way for me to celebrate with my new teammates and just be all in. And so for me, it wasn't even a choice. I was going to be all in with the club that I'm playing for now. I didn't ever think I was going back to the Galaxy. And when I did, I had to buy them 2 kegs because they really hated me because I celebrated.
I was there for that. That's right.
I celebrated around that field with my shirt off several times, and they truly hated me. The first game that I played over there for the Galaxy, my second stint, I had my 3-month-old kid, when Dax was yelling at the ref. It's like, why do we bring our kids in these situations?
Safety.
I'm signing autographs, and this dude that came straight from East LA, just comes right in my face and just flips me off and just MFs me. And I was like, whoa, like I said, these guys don't forget, I forgot. I was like, hey, I'm here. I'm back, guys.
I'm back.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good, right?
We're all cool. We're all cool.
Yeah. I don't know. What's your take, Dax? Are you celebrating or not?
Dax, let me hear you straddle the fence. What do you got?
No, I'm not straddling the fence. I'm celebrating 100%.
Oh, I love that. I'm actually surprised to hear that.
Gordo touched on it a little bit. You are celebrating with your new team and your teammates a very special personal accomplishment. Maybe it's a team accomplishment. Maybe it's a big goal. You're winning the game, right? For me, I look at it like this. It's not a disrespect to the fans. The fans have to understand that when you were wearing their badge, you're giving everything for the badge, right? There's no questions asked. At least that's how I was. If you get traded and it's out of your control, I'll give you an example. My trade from the New York Red Bulls to Chicago Fire, right? I wasn't happy about the trade initially. I wasn't happy about how it went down. So the first game back when we traveled to play New York at Red Bull Arena. It was a big game. If I would have scored in that game, I would have celebrated. But I probably would have celebrated by running in front of the Red Bulls bench and being taking my shirt off and flexing my scrawny muscles that I do have and been this is what you're missing. I'm going to celebrate because there's emotion there. There's passion there. It's not an FU to the fans, right? I understand where Justin Miram is coming from when he says that, he's doing it out of respect for the fans. Atlanta United got his career back on track. They believed in him when no one else did after a tough time. And you know what? I'm not going to begrudge him for that.
No.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's fair for players that have that sort of emotional connection. And maybe it was a difficult time and that club helped him get him back on his feet. So it's a respect thing. And I understand that. I just wouldn't do that, right? If it was if the Red Bulls were beating us 5-0 with the Chicago Fire and I went back and I scored and I started celebrating like a loser in a 5-1 game, then I'd really question myself. I probably wouldn't celebrate at that point because it's hey buddy, the game's over. Just go back to the halfway line and just get on with the game. You know what I mean? But if it's a big goal, if it's an important goal, if you're caught up in the emotion of it, Gordo's 100% right. Celebrate all you want. I don't have any issue with it. I think players actually should.
What would a fan's perspective be? Because there are things, let me rephrase that. Are there parameters where you should not celebrate? Because this past weekend, did you see the FC Barcelona clip where they're doing the ring around the rosy on the middle of the field at Espanyol, their oldest rival? Similar to what this is talking about, Barcelona, Madrid, but Barcelona is like,
it's a derby.
that goes back
Yeah.
deep.
It's a big derby.
And the fans rush the field, right? So are there levels? Granted, it's not a goal, but you
No.
just won the league
It's
for the
ridiculous.
first time in 4 years. That's a big monkey off the back of Barcelona. That's huge for them with all the things that they've gone through, potentially getting messy this summer. Like this is massive for them. They're celebrating. As a player, you guys have been here, I've been there. Is that directed at anybody? Should there be consideration for the arena that you're in, or the environment, or just the surroundings, the parameters with which you are celebrating in?
No, it's absurd behavior from the Espanyol
Agreed.
fans. Hey, you don't want
Agreed.
you don't want Barcelona celebrating on your field, then your players step up and play better, win the game. I don't know, Barcelona was going to win the league anyways. The fact that it happened on Espanyol's field, I understand there's like a lot of hatred there, a lot of passion. There's no excuse for a fan to charge a field ever.
No.
So that example is a tough one, because throwing things at players, charging the field, like threatening players, endangering the safety of players, or anyone on the field for that matter, like there's no justification for that at all. As far as to your question about like, should the fans have expect some level of respect to them, I definitely think that there are levels. Like if Bastian Schweinsteiger, fantastic guest we had on last episode, if he ran out of contract at Bayern Munich and he joined, I don't know, not Borussia Dortmund, but another club in Germany. Let's say he joined Hertha Berlin or another club, right? And he scored a goal. Bastian Schweinsteiger is Bayern Munich, right? He's like one of the biggest legends to ever come out of Bayern Munich's history. And if he decides, I'm not going to celebrate because I have too much respect and love for this club, who is to say that he shouldn't celebrate? But if he did, maybe he had an issue with the front office, maybe he had an issue with the coach, then I don't think that the fans would sit there and take it personally. I don't think the fans would sit there and say, he played for our club for 12, 15 years, whatever it is, and he's celebrating to rub it in our faces. I just don't think that would ever happen, right? Of course, you're going to have some fans that agree with it, disagree with it. Some fans are going to be pissed off about it. But ultimately, I don't think there's any excuse for a fan to get all hot and bothered about what a player decides to do if they score a goal.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree. I agree with you, but I think a fan's perspective, they're always going to hate that you're scoring. I don't think that they're ever going to be happy with that. That's their job. Their job is to be 100% loyal to the club that they are rooting for, right? And they are, the 100%.
But that's not the question, Gordo. The question is whether they should be pissed off if a former player is celebrating.
And I'm saying
against
they will be pissed off regardless if you celebrate or not. They don't like you anymore. They'll like Bosty. They'll like Bosty, right? And so it's all circumstantial, but 99.9% of players that have ever played are not Bosty, and they don't have that relationship with one club, right? Most guys are in some way journeymen, right? Whether it's, I mean, in some way, whether
or
we're
bumps. Journeymen or bumps.
Look at you go.
Whether we're going to accept you, into the club like completely or not, you're going to move, right? And there's going to be a new loyalty to you. And for us as players, it's who's paying you? Who is paying you to put food on your family's table? It's the crest on your chest at that moment, and we are going to be loyal to whoever we're battling for, and we're that's our livelihood. We're battling for them, and we're going to do what's best for them. So I'm just going to say, like, I don't think that fans are going to be like, oh, thanks, Justin. Like, man, like what a great dude. He just won the game for the other team, but at least he didn't celebrate. No. Do you think fans really even give a shit about Justin Meram once he gets traded? I don't know if the answer is yes. I think it would be no. I mean, for me, like, I've scored 2 goals in my career in Major League Soccer, but one of them was 2 weeks after I got traded from TFC to Chicago, and I scored the game winner against TFC in Chicago. But to Gordo, to your point, there was so many different layers around that goal. One of them was I felt like I was now a big piece of what the Chicago Fire were trying to do moving forward. That was my new team, right? Those are my guys. These are my guys now. It's not TFC. But I also felt that I was disregarded by the coaching staff at the time in Toronto. And I celebrated like a maniac. Chip
and I said,
on your shoulder.
How you like me now, to the sidelines, to the staff, to the coaching staff, as I ran back, because I was playing right back, and I scored and ran right in front of their bench to get back to my position. It had nothing to do with Toronto FC or with the fans. But I don't have the time to explain that to them because I absolutely loved my time in Toronto. Like one of my favorite stops of all time, probably second behind the Galaxy. My point is, I think there's a sliding scale here. There's a sliding scale of expectations because these fans are so significantly passionate because players don't have the ability to explain or have the time, or many of them don't have the interest to really share what the logic is or the emotional outburst. But I do have I think it is almost, I get where Miriam's coming from, but I almost think some of it is somewhat disrespectful to your new club and disrespectful to this team that says, hey, no, now you're ours. We want you. You're on our team. Let's do this together. Do you agree? Disagree?
I would like to have seen Justin Meram score a goal, run up to the supporter section in Atlanta, grab the megaphone, and say, "Hey everyone, I just want you to know that I love you. Thank you for accepting me. I'm about to go crazy and I'm about to celebrate my ass off right now." And then put the megaphone down and go and celebrate. I would like that.
Well, how about in Toronto, the capo throws the megaphone at Marth Anthony Kaye. I don't know if Miriam would
what a transition.
If he would even get close
to it.
He wouldn't even get close to it. How about that? I mean, how about that though? That was wild to see that.
It's absurd behavior, but that's where passion, you're crossing the line. I think Toronto right now is a great example of a team that's struggling. Their expectations were high. And I think emotion is getting the best out of that fan base, out of maybe the team, and obviously for me, anytime you throw something at someone on the field,
that was pretty wild.
There should be some sort of ban involved. Absolutely. That fan should be banned for a few games. He didn't connect. He didn't hit. He didn't injure anybody. So obviously there's not a lifetime ban or a year ban involved. But you can't do that. I mean, it's just absurd behavior, and it's this. I think it's this passion. Sometimes passion, it gets mistaken for this crazy radical behavior that's just completely unacceptable. And you can't just mask it by calling it passion, right? There has to be nuance involved, and there has to be a respect level involved. And so look, if you want to give the players the business, if you want to tell them it's not good enough, I remember in Chicago after we lost an Open Cup game to a USL team, we went over to the fans and they were giving us the business in our face, 5 feet away. And I accepted it. I took it. I said, it isn't good enough. We should have won that game, and you guys have every right to be upset. But if there's no respect there, and I'm going to sit there and get angry about a fan yelling in my face, then, look, maybe it's not the right job for you. So I just think it goes both ways.
Yeah, but I agree, man. They step over the line. If they're throwing anything that can harm a player, that's over the line.
All right, a couple quick hits. I want you guys instant, immediate reactions here. Are you signing this or are you releasing it? All right, so it's a yes or no. You can't pick both. The U20 kids not getting released, and this is Brian Gutierrez and Chris Brady in Chicago. Paxton Aronson doesn't get released from Frankfurt. There's a couple of them that clubs make that decision. I think Vanny and the Galaxy kind of towed the line and talked about both options. Dax, are you releasing your kids or are you not?
Well, am I signing the thought or am I releasing the thought? It's tough.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
I'm releasing the thought of this. I don't like it.
You don't like what?
I don't like not releasing your players. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're not good with what the Fire and Frankfurt are doing.
I'm not good with what the Fire are doing. So let me give you... You said I'm not allowed to toe the line, even though there is nuance involved here.
Well, you picked a side, so you can give me nuance.
I did pick a side. It makes me mad, and it angers me that they're not letting these kids go to the World Cup. This jersey right here, it's just a random USA jersey. I thought it was cool. It's a throwback to the 94 World Cup. But in general, one of the best moments and the best times I had in my career was going to the U20 World Cup in Canada. I was playing for FC Dallas at the time. I was contributing minutes. I wasn't a locked-on every game starter, but I was playing good minutes. I was a part of the team. I was rotating in and out. But it was a dream of mine to play in a Youth World Cup for the U.S. You know, I think these players, there's no guarantee that any of these kids that aren't being released are going to make it and have another opportunity to play in these World Cups. So I hate it. But there is nuance involved, and this is not me towing the line or being on the fence about it. If you want to take Chicago, for example, their starting goalkeeper is a very good goalkeeper, Chris Brady.
Yep.
I understand that if he were to go to the World Cup, he would be the backup to Slonina, who's at Chelsea. So that is the one position where I understand the Fire saying, hey, you're playing every game for us. We think it's more valuable for you to play with us here than go sit on the bench every game for Slonina.
Right.
So that one I kind of understand. The Gutierrez one, it pisses me off because he's a very good player. I'm a big fan of his. This is an opportunity to showcase your club and the players you have at this club on a higher level. There will be scouts there. You can raise his transfer value. And to people that want to say, he's contributing every game, he's an important player for the Chicago Fire, that's great. I understand that. It's awesome that you're giving a young player minutes. It's awesome that he is an important part of your team. But I question your roster build if you're relying on an 18 or 19-year-old.
I mean, that's what it's telling you,
and
right?
you don't have, and you cannot release this kid for a month, right, to go and live his dream at a World Cup. When, hello, we play in MLS. The Fire are probably 3 points out of a playoff spot right now. Like, don't give me that nonsense. It actually pisses me off that they would say, oh, well, we need him because we're so bad right now and he has to contribute. No, that's a roster build problem. And the kid probably wanted to go represent his country in a World Cup. So it really bothers me. That's it. That's all I got for you guys.
That's it.
Try to follow that,
That's
Gordo.
it. Just everything again. Leave nothing. Like, give me the bone. I'm the dog here. All right, he's just throwing a bone in my
Just
bowl.
agree with me again. I know what you're going to do. You're
try
not
to
going
Gordo,
bite off
do
any meat
you
that's
have anything
left
to
on
add, or
this
you want me
thing.
to move on?
Not only am I releasing it, I think it's ridiculous, Dax. I mean, like I said, there's not much to add to what you just said because you said every thought that I had. But I think it's plain and simple.
Similar to 7th grade, someone else's homework.
Yep.
And you're literally denying somebody's right to do something that they've earned over their whole life, okay, to this point. And they have earned that. They may never, ever get the opportunity to put on and represent their country ever again. I was able to represent my country, which is really shocking to a lot of people. However, it happened for me, and that's the most proud moment of my life. And it would be for anybody that did it. And for somebody to say, no, you can't go and do something that you've earned, I just think that's a little bit ridiculous, regardless of how much they're contributing to your team, how much you need them, all that stuff. And I would just agree that it's a roster problem if you're relying on
the only
else.
thing I'll add is part of the devil's advocate side of this, which I completely agree with both.
So
of
you're
you.
signing.
And I think that you're taking the right stance. What I will say is, from a sporting director's position, has U.S. Soccer given any sporting director a good feeling about releasing their players to them because there's a clear identity? I get it. I do get it. And the rebuttal is overwhelmingly in the opposite direction.
Expand on that.
Well, okay. So who's leading the charge at U.S. Soccer? What's the plan? What are you doing with your players? What are you doing with your staff? What are you doing with any of this position from what is actually happening? Me, okay, I'm a sporting director of a club, right? I pay these players. I pay my staff. I have the ability to lose my job. I have the ability to win and earn more money, right? To what you're talking about, Gordo. I don't have trust in U.S. Soccer right now. Does anybody have trust in U.S. Soccer right now? So you're at a point where, let's just use the two players, Gutierrez and Brady, as an example. 10 games, 10 starts, right? Significant players on their team. They obviously made a decision to remove their coach. There's clear pressure there. I'm not saying it's the right decision. I don't agree with that. But I understand where a sporting director could come from and say, well, what type of confidence are you giving me in doing this?
Right. I know why you're saying that, but then you leave it up to discretion of that person on his beliefs on U.S. Soccer, right? And somebody's always going to disagree. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Chicago just a touch. Jesse Marsh and Chris Armas are in Chicago last week. Are they interviewing for the Chicago Fire head job, or are they interviewing for U.S. Soccer?
Neither.
Neither. Just going to hang out with Frankie Klopas.
They were in town for the Open Cup game against St. Louis, and I don't have any inside information. This is purely my opinion, speculation. I think Jesse Marsch wants to continue to test his options in Europe. I think that he probably will at some point have a conversation with U.S. Soccer, but to me, neither of them are going to be up for the Chicago Fire job.
I'm going to split them. I'm going to say Armas is definitely there to interview for the Chicago Fire job, and Marsch is definitely there to have a coffee and a conversation. It's probably not an interview. It's probably a coffee, sitting down with somebody and just having some soccer talk. You know, what are your plans? What's going on? Would you be interested in this? That's why I think he's there.
The prelude to the interview.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a coffee. Hey, come on out, little guy. Hey,
you want cream? You like cream or sugar?
That's all it is. Listen, we're not going to kiss on the first date. You know, I want some heavy petting. Okay, we'll see where this goes.
You heavy pet at coffees?
I mean, it's been done.
You move the hair out of the face, right, Gordo?
Depends on the vibe. You should see the coffee shop vibes out here in Denver. See a lot of petting going on.
We'll get you guys out of here on this. It's been fun. Good banter. Download, check in, all the different things that you can find us on, all the platforms. Statman Jack's got us in tow. Good to see you. We're out.